Stick, just making that clear. Okay, we are going to be joined shortly by Senator Schumer and his guest, as well as Senator Duckworth, but we have a hearty crew with us today, so we thought we would get started, given that the State of the Union is not too far away. It has now been more than a year since Donald Trump was inaugurated, and we all know costs are up, chaos is up, and corruption is up. And by the way, on that last point, 62% of Americans in a poll that ABC just did last week showed that they believe that the president is using the White House and the presidency to enrich himself. So when we look back at the year, and it has been a year, I think a lot of people feel like it has been more than a year since Donald Trump came into office, but he has spent his first year in office dividing Americans, catering to the wealthy, and really making life a lot harder for people. I don't know how many times Mark Kelly was talking about this earlier today on certain stations that he is running ads for products that he is selling himself. And instead of helping Americans with the cost of housing or the cost of their groceries or the cost of child care. I know as well as anyone up here, given what happened in Minnesota, that he has unleashed thousands of untrained, unaccountable masked ICE agents into communities, creating two justice systems, one for those who can pay to play and one for those who can't. Just ask the Hmong elder in Minnesota in St. Paul who had his door rammed in, and then ICE agents grabbed him out in his underwear, threw him into a car, and drove around for an hour until discovering that they had the wrong guy, and the guy they were trying to get had been in prison for years and years and was still in prison. We had many, many stories of citizens, just regular people, who were stopped, thrown into a car, taken a few blocks, or taken to the detention center. That's what Donald Trump unleashed on my state, making it less safe and leaving two innocent citizens dead. My guests for tonight's address, and we are invited guests that are focused on the cost, the chaos, and the corruption. In my case, I chose to focus on the cost because we have small business owners that just are roadkill with these tariffs. They don't have the reserves of a big corporation. My guest, Sean Syverson, is the owner of Swing Barrel Brewing in Moorhead, Minnesota. I just left him. He was on a plane at like 5 in the morning and finally got here, and there was a de-icing situation on the plane, but he's going to be here tonight and happy to be here. But he's just an example, honestly, of a regular guy that's not political at all, that got thrown in the middle of all this mess because of the tariffs. You're going to hear from other guests, ones that aren't up here today, but just to give you a sense of them. Senator Baldwin's guest, a Wisconsin mom whose son has Down syndrome and relies on the Medicaid-funded services that have been slashed by Republicans. Senator Warnock's guest from Georgia, an administrator for the area's only major rural hospital, which is now reeling from these budget shortfalls. Senator Cortez Masto's guest, a small business owner from Nevada who relies on tourism, which has been crushed by the policies of the Trump administration. So many of the guests have been the victims of, from utilities to housing to health care, of the fact that this economy is too expensive and that promises the president made not just a year ago but a year before that have never been held to, in fact been broken. What we plan to do today, for the many of us who are going to be in that chamber, is to listen to the president, but what's really important to us is that our guests are there to show what's really happening. So whatever President Trump says is the State of the Union, the reality of the State of the Union is right up here. And I know that many of Americans, whether they're Democrats, whether they're independents, moderate Republicans, really don't want a rubber stamp Congress right now. They really want a Congress that's going to stand up and put the people first. So with that, I'm excited to hear from our senators who are up here. We're going to start with Senator Cantwell, who will be introducing her guest, and we have Senator Blunt Rochester with us, Senator Kim with us, and of course Senator Schumer and Senator Duckworth will also be joining us. Senator Cantwell.
Thank you, Amy, and thank you for organizing this today. We all know that the administration has already misstepped in trying to take over rights that don't belong to him in the tariffs, certainly in sending Homeland Security to threaten the free speech of Minnesotans, and now in an executive order and pushing the SAVE Act, the franchise of American citizens. Millions of Americans will have to pay to prove their citizenship if they want to vote under Donald Trump's proposal. A passport can cost $165. In Washington, a replacement of a birth certificate is somewhere between $28 and $51. And voters will have to travel to do more paperwork and stand in longer lines. He is basically threatening to nationalize the elections. This is unconstitutional. We know that in our state, people vote by mail, and it has been a secure system. And we have very, very little voter fraud. We are talking about 1/10,000th of 1%. That is what the fraud has been. The Brennan Center has been accurate in saying the number of cases, just 30 cases out of 23 million votes cast. Meanwhile, the SAVE Act, if enacted, was disenfranchised over 21 million Americans who are eligible to vote now, but all of a sudden would have to prove their identity to actually get their ballot or vote at a polling place across the United States. The Heritage Foundation found over a 40-year period since the 1980s, on average, of only one fraudulent ballot cast every 3 years in the state of Washington. That is why I invited Secretary of State Steve Hobbs. He knows how our election system is there to catch fraud. He knows that you have to be a United States citizen to vote, and that is why your signature on every ballot is there to attest to that. The review work that is done are trained by the Washington State Patrol. So literally the citizenry of the United States in our state of Washington help review the ballots and the accuracy of these ballots. And so to say all of a sudden that we're going to pass a new law disenfranchising millions of Americans because simply the president believes that there are people who want to basically are non-U.S. citizens wanting to vote, I think is inaccurate. We know that people are here, like the League of Women Voters, who are articulate about the fact they do not support the SAVE Act. We know that there are Republican former Secretary of States in our state who do not support the SAVE Act. We know that there are individuals who are fighting right now to try to instead get the John Lewis Voting Right Act so that we actually can fight that. And in our state, if we really do want to fight the terrorism at the polling place, figure out who blew up a voting box in Vancouver, Washington, where we had one of the closest elections, or stop the kind of activities that misaligned foreign interests are doing to actually interfere with our elections. But trying to say that the United States needs to pass the SAVE Act doesn't save us money, doesn't save us from any real problems. Instead, it costs Americans and it creates more red tape. So I would like to introduce our Washington Secretary of State, Steve Hobbs. Steve?
Thank you, Senator. Look, the SAVE Act, it doesn't save anything. The bill disenfranchises voters and leaves our democracy even more vulnerable. The administration is more focused on tilting at windmills on the myth that has already been disproven many times. You heard it from the senator who told you about a conservative think tank that gave the example of not many people are non-citizens that are voting. If this administration was serious about elections, you know what they would do? They would restore the funding and support, which they cut last year, to programs to defend our elections from constant cyber attack and disinformation campaigns from overseas actors. Hire back the cybersecurity experts and professionals that supported our elections. Now, right now, states and counties, they have to step up to the plate. They have to fund these programs that have been left behind by this administration cutting. And when funding is actually given, and actually the federal government is a helpful partner, we become a united front against these attacks. For example, in 2023, one of our counties were hit with a pretty substantial cyber attack. taken out for 120 hours. Because Homeland Security was there for us, they notified my office, we notified the county, and we were able to restore that county back to operation and disconnect our voter database because nation-state actors will do everything they can to get to that voter database. In 2024, a disinformation campaign from a nation-state actor, again, we worked with Homeland Security to report this. In 2024, again, we had 2 ballot boxes blow up. One of them in Oregon. Again, the coordinated effort of the federal government and U.S. Postal Service. We were able to get those voters that had their ballots blown up, their replacement ballot, so they would have a voice in this election. And the white powder incident that happened last year in 2024 as well. Because of the coordinated effort, we were able to intercept these envelopes with white powder and other states because we worked together, because the funding was there. This year, we're already seeing what's happening. Already homegrown attacks, white powder happening in 2 counties this year. And I guarantee you that nation-state adversaries like Russia, they're not gonna like say, they're not gonna, they're not going to let up on their cyber attacks and disinformation campaigns. The Save America Act addresses none of these real documented threats to our elections. In addition, the Postal Service changed the way they do postmarks, and they hinder vote-by-mail states like my own. My own son's and wife's ballot got rejected. Now, luckily, our state stepped up to the plate, and we're putting the word out to make sure you vote early in the mailbox or put it in the ballot drop box by Tuesday. Luckily, we're getting the word out, and I'm very grateful to Senator Cantwell and the Democratic Senate leadership for allowing us to have a voice here today, because all Secretaries of State, Republican and Democrats, were very concerned about this cutting of our support to elections.
Very good. Thank you. Senator Duckworth? Okay.
I'll stand.
Okay.
Thank you. I'll consider this my physical therapy for the day. Hi, everyone. Well, thank you for being here, and I want to thank Leader Schumer and Senator Klobuchar for gathering us. To me, it's really simple. It doesn't matter if you're from a red state or a blue state. It doesn't matter if you're from a big city or small town. No matter the color of your skin or the accent that you speak in, how you pray or who you love. It's hard to imagine that there are many folks out there who haven't experienced the stress, the fear, or the heartbreak of a healthcare crisis in the family. It could be one that they've experienced themselves or one that they were forced to witness as a loved one suffered through an illness or an injury. It's that kind of worst case scenario. The last thing they need, the last thing they deserve is to be treated by their governments as if they're being punished for the sin of getting sick. But that's how Trump is treating Americans. As we've heard today, Donald Trump spent his first year in office making sure that everyone, including his own voters, are going to hurt. He's refused to take no for an answer, forcing through legislation that prioritized chaos over care, corruption over compassion. With his big, ugly Sharpie signature last summer, he happily stripped away the tax credits that millions of Americans relied on to afford health care. Thanks to his bill, thanks to his apathy, thanks to his antipathy for his own citizens, countless folks' premiums for their health care are skyrocketing. This has forced too many to make the choice of whose care in their own family they can afford, or whether they need the rate to ration their child's insulin even further, or whether that lump on their chest is really worth the price tag that comes with a trip to the doctor's office. Jeremy is here, my State of the Union guest. He is one of those Americans. I first met Jeremy Schumacher at one of my town halls last year in a Republican congressional district where Mike Bost, his congressman, refused to do town halls. And Jeremy's story has stuck with me ever since. Jeremy's family's healthcare costs nearly quadrupled, spiking by $11,000 after Trump and Republicans refused to extend the enhanced ACA premium tax credits. Jeremy's been forced to forego his own healthcare needs in the desperate hope of being able to continue covering the care that his wife, who is disabled, needs. No family should have to pick and choose whether mom or dad or daughter or son or in the case of Jeremy, the primary breadwinner for the family gets care. But that's what GOP has made sure would become a reality for so many families when they sold out the American people to give more tax breaks to billionaires. Jeremy deserves better. His wife deserves better. America deserves better than this president and the bullshit he's going to say tonight. I refuse to attend Trump's address this evening because I'm not interested in sitting there and watch Republicans stroke his fragile ego for hours on end. I refuse to attend because I want to make sure that Americans know that Democrats don't stand for Trump's lies and chaos. I want to let them know that we're fighting for them. And I want them to know that in their most nightmarish moments, they don't deserve this nightmare of a president. Thank you, and with that, I'm going to hand it over to my guest, Jeremy. Oops, thank you, I got it.
Good?
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Jeremy.
Hi, I'm from small town Illinois, Carbondale. Holy crap, I'm in Washington D.C., but I'm here because of the pain of checking the mail. We never know if the next bill coming is the one that is going to put us in bankruptcy or make us lose our house. Our insurance costs have quadrupled in the past 2 months. We went from a $5,000 deductible to a $16,400 deductible. So on a single income, I have chosen to not go to the doctor because once we hit my wife's deductible, which last year we would have hit already at $1,500 in 2 months that has been spent. Now we have an additional $3,000 to go before we even hit her deductible before we start mine. I just went to the doctor for the first time this week and found out I have diabetes. The amount of money. I'm sorry.
No, don't apologize. Take your time.
I'm afraid that because of that, the testing, the x-rays that I got, I will never be able to pay for them. I already cannot pay for them, and I won't be able to. I'm going to be at the mercy of whatever service I can find to help me take down these bills, and there's not many of those left. I'm sorry to do this, but that's the pain that a lot of us small town America is going through. I've been apolitical for a lot of my life. Didn't pose the question to the senator when we met her at the town hall as a Republican or a Democratic question. It's an everyday American question. And I expect the same answer that I got from her that I would from Representative Bost, from any other elected official, to care about what's happening to us. I don't I'm sorry.
We talked about the people that are watching you from home,
Yeah.
who are in the same situation and think they're alone, and they're not.
Yeah, just know there's thousands of us suffering in silence. I just happened to open my mouth at an event, and now I'm here. I've opened my mouth in front of the entire
people. You're representing a lot of people that can't be here.
It's crazy, but I'll go home and I'll check the mail again, and I will be terrified once again that that's the next bill that we can't afford. And if it was just healthcare, it'd be one thing, but everything has gone up. Our electricity bill's gone up 30%. Our food bill's gone up over 50%. We just cannot afford to live anymore. And you don't feel like you're a part of society anymore. And that puts people in a dark spot. When you are constantly afraid that the next day is going to be the one that kicks you out of your own home that you own. So that's just what we live with every single day, and so many of us suffer in silence. And I'm glad that I get to speak for all of them today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Really good. Chuck? Yeah.
Well, thank you. I thank Senator Klobuchar and my colleagues for being here today. Thank you all so much. But today is not about us. It's about Americans. Americans that have been ignored, lied to, and hurt by Trump. Today is about Danny Bensky. Danny's a New Yorker. I've come to know her. She's a survivor of Jeffrey Epstein's abuse. And she's here because even after everything she endured, she is still fighting, not just for herself, but for every survivor who was silenced, who was ignored, who was dismissed. This month, Danny stood with me as I introduced Virginia's law, legislation that would eliminate the federal statute of limitation barriers so survivors of sexual abuse can finally pursue justice, no matter how powerful their abuser is. When you are a victim of sexual abuse, it doesn't go away. You live with it every day for the rest of your life. And so for a law to cruelly say, if you don't come forward after X years, you can't come forward anymore, is outrageous. And our law would change that and allow people to come forward when they are ready, not when the law says they should. Tonight, President Trump will try to picture his first year back in office with nothing but smoke and mirrors. But the American people know the truth because they're living the truth. And this year has been defined by costs, chaos, corruption. Families are paying more at the grocery store and more in rent because of his reckless trade wars and economic mismanagement. And while working people struggle, Trump and his family are cashing in and pocketing billions, not even millions, but billions. It said Trump wants to be the richest man in America. And it's America, it's at your expense, your tax dollars, that he's doing it. And nowhere is corruption more heartless than in the refusal to release the Epstein files. For months, as we know, Trump campaigned and promised to release the files. Congress passed the Epstein Files Transparency Act last year. The message was simple: no one is above the law. Yet for 3 months, Trump's Justice Department has ignored that law. That's not transparency, it is cover-up, period. And when they did release a fraction of the total documents, when they did release some documents, they failed to properly protect victims' personal information while shielding perpetrators. Think about that, protecting criminals and not survivors. That's cruel, it's corrupt, and it's unacceptable. There is no half-justice. The American people deserve the truth. Survivors deserve accountability. Danny has turned unimaginable pain into unrelenting advocacy. I've seen her advocate on numerous occasions, and she is just great. And she's demanding, very simply, what every survivor deserves: dignity, transparency, and justice. And that's what Senate Democrats are fighting for. Danny, thanks for your courage.
Thank you
The floor
so much.
is yours.
Thank you so much, Senator Schumer. Really appreciate being here today with you. My name is Danny Bensky. I was a 17-year-old Jeffrey Epstein victim in 2004 and 2005. I was victimized and abused by Jeffrey Epstein, but really there's a second phase of abuse that started about 3 months ago when I realized that my name, phone number, address, where I worked at the time, all identifying information had been just brought to light for the world to see. It was completely exposed. But don't worry, because the photo of my dog that was in there was redacted. I think it's safe to say that the redactions done by a bunch of lawyers were sloppy at best and deliberately careless and calculated at worst. What kind of administration releases naked photos of victims and then protects the perpetrators? Survivors have not been clear, or survivors have been very, very clear that we want 3 things. Trump and the DOJ need to release all of the files, every single file. We need to release all of the files. We want the men who caused serious harm to so many victims to be investigated and held accountable. The truth really must come out. We want victims' information to be redacted properly, not the perpetrators. We also have a few questions. As we're here today for the State of the Union, we really wish that he would answer. Why is anyone saying that there is nothing to see here? Why is Trump calling us a hoax? Have you read the files? Why are countless nations around the globe taking this so seriously while our president continues to delay and cover up? Even the United Nations has called this a crime against humanity, but no action has been taken on our soil by this administration. The abuse that survivors have endured, across administrations is absolutely abhorrent. This administration had an opportunity to make it right and instead re-victimize survivors time and time again. In our nation, we know that 1 in 4 women are survivors, and honestly, I think that statistic is probably kind of low because people aren't really reporting this, right? When you think about how many people in our nation have survived sexual abuse and sexual harm, it is not just about the Epstein and Maxwell case. It is not about the people standing here. It is about the collective and our country, the women and people in our country. All to say that the abuse that survivors have endured across administrations it's absolutely awful, and we need to make it stop. We need to make sure that we're not being re-victimized over and over again. Enough with all of these distractions. Pam Bondi, when we were at the hearing, sat there and talked to us about the Dow when she was asked and pressed about the Epstein files. You're just covering everything up, not even giving us baseline humanity. So, enough with all the distractions. Release the damn files. It's time for a course correction. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Should I come this way? Go this way.
Good afternoon. I'm Senator Lisa Blunt Rochester from Delaware, and I want to begin by thanking Senator Klobuchar for the invitation, as well as Senator Schumer. And thank you to everyone who's already shared their very, very powerful stories. Tonight, the president will talk about an America that working families don't even recognize. He will say that prices have gone down, but Americans are still choosing, as Jeremy shared, between paying their premiums, paying their rent, or buying groceries. He will say that he is the president of peace while he draws us closer to war. And he will say our country is safer, while ICE agents are deployed in communities in ways that spread fear instead of promoting safety. So let's be clear. The only thing that this president has done is lead with fear and sow chaos. For months, communities from Los Angeles to Minnesota to my home state of Delaware have been living under a cloak of fear. There are countless stories that Americans as young as 2 years old are being ripped away from their families and deported. But they don't stop there. The administration has turned vibrant American neighborhoods into places where people are even afraid to leave their homes, go to supermarkets. In my state, kids are not even going to Head Start or attending church. However, these moments of chaos are also in the same wake of extraordinary strength from everyday Americans. One such American is Maria Messinas Tatno, who is here with me today. Maria is the Director of Outreach and Immigration Assistance at the Delaware Department of Justice, and she has helped countless Delawareans understand their rights and access to resources. Last year, a mother, a Delaware mom, was wrongfully and violently arrested in her home in front of her 2 children. But when Maria learned that this Delaware was being detained in Monroe, Louisiana, which is over 1,000 miles away from Delaware, she did not hesitate to work with partners to step in and rescue her. Because of people like Maria, a mother was reunited with her children. A family has been made whole again. Maria and her partners are the unsung heroes. No one should face the horror of having their home broken into, their car window smashed, as another family shared with us, their child as a pawn. And it's why Maria, to me, represents so many people, the unsung heroes. Maybe they don't have the big title, they're not elected, but they're the people that are doing the work each and every day to make people feel safe in our communities. And so today and tonight, it was important for me to bring somebody here who represented all of them. She represents to me all that is good and kind in our country. She represents humanity in a time where some people are acting very inhumane. And as I talked to her before we came here, we talked about a roundtable that I held in our state with folks from different communities, from our Haitian community, from our Latino communities, and we talked about this moment of fear and hate versus love. I don't know what we're going to hear tonight. I have no idea. But what I do know, what I do believe, is that love is much stronger than hate. And people like Maria, people like the one standing up here, are representative of that. That is why we will hold space in that place tonight. I am so proud to introduce to you Maria to share the story of that mom. Please welcome Maria. Come on down. Come on down.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you for your kind words and the great opportunity of being here today. I would like to tell you a little bit about what I do, but most importantly, share the story of Isabella. Because I feel like when we hear stories, when we put faces and names to statistics and numbers, it really makes a difference. My name is Maria Messias Tano, and I am a U.S. citizen. I immigrated from Ecuador and have been living in the United States for about 25 years. I serve as a director of outreach services for immigration assistance at the Delaware Office of the Attorney General. I am deeply passionate about the work that I do. Every day, I encounter people who need assistance navigating the intricate immigration system. We help people with forms, guidance with the processes, but during the last year, the number and the tone of the calls have changed significantly. We've been getting more calls for people who have been separated from their families, people that need clarification about the latest immigration policy changes, or just looking for assurance that they will be protected if someone comes after them or their family members. So I'll tell you about a little bit about Isabella. She was living in Delaware under a legal protected status. She has a U visa process in place, and U visas are given to people who have suffered mental or physical abuse and are helpful with law enforcement when reporting the abuses. Isabella was one of those victims. She was stabbed in 2019 by her partner and helped the police and the Department of Justice to investigate, prosecute, and eventually deport her ex-husband. Early one morning, around 5 o'clock in the morning, ICE agents wearing masks and heavily armed broke into their home without a warrant, without an explanation. They were after someone else that was present at the house, and she was a collateral. Her children were present. One of them got hit at the door when it was kicked down. And her daughter, 11-year-old girl, was awakened by a masked man standing by her side with arms. Isabella found herself in a plane to Louisiana, headed to an ICE detention facility. The detention center conditions were horrific. For a month, Isabella slept on an inch-thick mattress in cells. The detainees were paid $1 for cleaning the bathrooms for a week. They were rushed to eat at inconsistent hours throughout the day. She shared that some of the women there were pregnant and they were denied basic prenatal care. And the excuse was that she was going to lose the baby anyway. After Tyler's work from the Office of the Attorney General, Kathy Jennings, Dan Logan, and our partners in Delaware, Legal Aid, we finally secured a deal that allowed Isabella to come home. I was called in the morning, one day, and I was told that ICE planned on dropping Isabella at the airport. She speaks no English, had no documentation, no phone, and no money. Within hours of learning this, I got on a flight, and I escorted Isabella back home. When I met her, she was still wearing the pajamas and the flip-flops. She was reunited with her family the next day, and her children are suffering from PTSD. They're receiving counseling. However, she cannot access counseling because she doesn't have insurance. There are countless stories like Isabella's. Our goal as public servants is not only to help people navigate a complicated immigration process, but also to do so with compassion, humanity, and care. Across the country, there are many stories that are going untold. We need to continue telling the stories and keep hope that these dark days will soon end. And remind the people that regardless of their immigration status, they have civil and human rights that should not and could not be violated. And President Trump, stop persecuting my people. Stop persecuting the people. Thank you.
Thank you. Andy Kim.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming. These incredible, powerful stories that we heard. We have heard more truth here at this press conference than we will in tonight's speech. More truth from the American people, real people that understand the struggles that so many are facing around this country. I was just back in my home state. I did a town hall. I went across New Jersey and asked people, what is the state of our union? Unaffordable. Chaos. These are the words that Americans are using. These are not the words that we're going to hear from this president that continues to push these lies upon us. When we see the challenges of unaffordability of the healthcare costs, we have 1 million less people that have healthcare right now this past month. We see every day losing more and more. When we had this president come here to this Capitol before at his inauguration, he talked about a golden age for America. But now that we are over a year into this administration, we see what his words meant. It meant it was a golden age for him. It was a golden age for Trump's family, for the people that were up on stage with him, but not for the rest of us. Tonight's speech, this is not the state of Trump's family's speech. This is not a situation where we see that he and his family has made billions of dollars since January 20th last year. How much has your family made? This is not the state of billionaires in America. This is the state of our union. This is the state of the American people. This is the state of our families. Speaking from my family, I can tell you the state of my family is hurting. My father, just a couple months ago, diagnosed with Alzheimer's. We are reeling from that. And we are struggling with this question of what next. But that's not just my family. Over 7 million families have somebody that has Alzheimer's in their family, many millions more with dementia, Parkinson's, and many other illnesses and challenges that are out there. That is the state of our union. We are hurting. We're struggling. And we're trying to figure out how to be able to move forward. And that's why I asked Kathy Rowe to be able to come from New Jersey down here. She and I share that in our family we have parents that had Alzheimer's. She understands what so many are facing, but she is somebody who has channeled her own challenges as a family to try to help so many others. As an advocate now, trying to improve the lives of caregivers, of elders and seniors in our communities that are struggling. So I'm just grateful for her because she sets the example of what this country should be. We have our struggles, but we're not just looking out for ourselves. This is not a state of just grab as much as we can get for ourselves and hoard it. This is a state that is about sharing, about compassion, about looking out for one another. Alzheimer's doesn't care if you're a Democrat or Republican. This is a reason for us to be able to unite. And Kathy Rowe embodies that, and I'm grateful for her to be my guest today. Kathy?
Thank you. And I just want to say I am absolutely humbled by the stories that other people have shared here today. So 3.5 years ago, my mother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and I remember it distinctly. It was the same week we dropped off my youngest at college, and for a brief moment, I was an empty nester, and then suddenly I became part of the sandwich generation, now tasked with being a caregiver for my mother. And it was hard. Because Alzheimer's, or really our healthcare system overall, doesn't care if you're Republican or Democrat. In the sandwich generation, we all find ourselves looking at too high health costs, too much red tape, and not enough resources to go around. Fortunately, for my family, I work in the aging field. I have a doctorate in public health. I run a nonprofit for aging in New Jersey. I have resources, I know people, I know more than the average person about aging and about dementia and the health system. And still, I had trouble. I had trouble navigating it, I struggled, and it made me wonder how most people can navigate or afford this. How most people can afford to pay for their American health care when they don't have the resources like my family had to take care of my mother. You see, my mother was a smart woman who raised 3 daughters on her own. She had Social Security, 2 pensions, and a good amount of savings. But most Americans don't, and they risk going bankrupt just trying to get proper care for their family. The healthcare system is chaotic. I've known this all my life. I've been a type 1 diabetic since 1978. I live every day with our healthcare system. And it feels like your ability to get the care you need depends on where you live. Just look at Medicaid and Medicare. One of my biggest concerns right now is that with cuts to Medicaid, we are going to see Americans lose the little support that they have. People are spending their savings, giving up careers to provide care, and it's just not sustainable. But with a national plan, like many states are doing with a multi-sector plan for aging, we can get ahead. We can modernize Medicare so it covers more of what an aging population needs. We can make healthcare more affordable for everyone. Now is the time for us to come together and say Americans should not be bankrupting themselves to cover cancer treatment, shouldn't be forced to choose between groceries or healthcare. We need to come together and say that we demand better because we do deserve better. Thank you.
Thank you. The hour's getting late, but if anyone has 1 or 2 questions, we're here. Are we good? Okay, well, I'm sure our guests will stick around if anyone wants to talk to them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I love Andy's closing words that this is the truth of the State of the Union.